University of Houston, Clear Lake, which is where I work in marketing and communications. And in one of the programs that we are most proud of at UH Clear Lake, and one that I've had quite a lot to do with because I write about it, is the program that we have within the it's called Academics for Offenders, and it is an undergraduate and graduate program that is taught in a particular prison facility in Rosharon. And Johnny was incarcerated for a period of time there, and there he is. And during that period of time, he managed to get his bachelor's degree and his master's degree from within the UH Clear Lake program, which is within the College of Human Sciences and Humanities, which Samuel Gladden, my other wonderful friend there, is the dean of that particular college. So just to kind of give you background, this is a program that's been in place for quite a number of years. And one of the things that I asked when I first started interviewing and talking to graduates that came from the Academics for Offenders program that graduated out and were actually released, is I wanted to know what the difference was between the requirements for students who are behind the walls versus the ones that were not behind the walls. And the answer is no difference. There's no difference. All the requirements are the same. They have to pay tuition. I think the only money that an incarcerated student does not have to pay is the parking fee and the library fee, because they cannot park, obviously, and they obviously cannot use the library. So what happens is the professors describe it as kind of a 1980s classroom in which there's no internet permissible. And so they bring the books and they bring the materials on paper, and there's a lot of exchange of paper and like mail and, you know, hand carrying things like we did back in, like we all did when it was our time going to school. But the requirements are exactly the same. The assignments are the same, and the expectations are the same other than that. So these students have, the professors are excellent, but they're very exacting, and they have very high expectations. And so a student who has managed to complete the coursework with all the expectations, with no internet and none of the support and infrastructure that's built in for a college student that's going in the traditional sense, they have none of that. So you have so many obstacles to overcome, and then you're trying to read all these reading assignments and write all these reports and do all this research with none of the resources. So it really requires so much more effort and so much more dedication and so much more. It's a real test of endurance, because I think it would be really easy to just like say, this is too much, I can't do this. Needless to say, you're surrounded with some other inmates who are maybe not so impressed with you, trying to, you know, they don't want to be quiet because you're studying for a test kind of thing. They don't care about your test, those types of things. So there's quite a lot of obstacles. And for Johnny to have decided to make the decision that he was going to dedicate himself to bettering himself and improving his mind and expanding his skill set under those circumstances, those stories to me are really, really interesting and amazing. And now I'm going to ask him to pick up the story, because he's written a book, and having exited from the program, from the prison, and he's on parole, and I was able to meet him in person, and he can come now, and he's going to graduate and walk, maybe he already did. And you know, we're able to meet in person instead of, you know, well, his professors would have to go to him, but now he can come and see his professors on campus, those types of things. He's written a book, And the book is what I wrote the article about, which is, there's a link to it, I think in the newsletter, isn't there, Mike? Or I thought I saw, there's a link. Okay, so there's a link to a story that I wrote about a book that Johnny has written about his experiences and the experiences of other inmates whom he was with at Rosharon, who are also most of them I think are also UHCL students who are also working the program. So now I'm going to be quiet because this is not about me, but that's the sort of the background. And I want Johnny to talk because he's I'm very impressed with him, and I think he's just a truly an inspirational kind of person. So go ahead, Johnny. You know what? I would just say start talking about your book and what made you decide to write a book.
I think I want to kind of. Can everybody hear me? Yeah,
Yes.
everybody. I kind of want to talk about ultimately, how there's certain labels and certain stigmas associated with people that are in prison, and so we're talking about the prison system. We're talking about me being in the prison system, and ultimately, how did I get there? Right? Usually, the first question that comes to somebody's mind is what did he do? Like, why were you put in prison? Because that's where they have all the heinous people. That's where they have all the people that commit these terrible crimes. But the reality for me is I grew up in a real poverty-stricken area. My mom was a drug addict, and my stepfather was a drug addict, and we moved around a lot. When I was a kid, I ended up in a shelter. I never completed middle school. I dropped out of school in the 7th grade, and because I didn't have any stability at home, uh, they talk about it and they call it the school to prison pipeline, right? Where people from lower socioeconomic areas, due to their lack of resources, they commit crimes and they end up in prison. And so ultimately, that's what happened to me. When I was 21 years old, I was trying to break into a vehicle. I was living on the street and I got shot by a police officer. And I got shot in the chest and I got shot in the side. I didn't have a weapon or anything on me. And I ended up going to prison. And so now I'm in prison and I just turned 21 years old. I don't have any familial support. I don't have anybody in the world. I don't know anything about the criminal justice system. I mean, at that stage in my life, I couldn't even fill out an envelope. I mean, I was that lost. And I didn't have any confidence in myself neither. I didn't have any support. I didn't have any confidence in myself. And now I'm in this terrible environment. And, for a lot of people, like they don't understand what the prison environment is. And so the thing is, the reality is that, you're basically housed like animals. Really, there's no air conditioning. When it gets hot, it gets hot. I mean, there's been times where it gets so cold you have to sleep fully dressed with your jacket on and your thermals on and all your clothes on, and and then it can be a real violent place too. So you have all these people, a lot of people like me, a lot of people that are underprivileged, and a lot of people that don't have education, and a lot of people that don't have resources, don't have support, and have substance abuse problems. And then you house them all in these big dormitories, or you house them all in these big wings. And a lot of these guys, they don't have the skills necessary the social skills necessary to even communicate with each other. So that's what brings on the violence. And then there's a real lack of education. And so what happened when I was, 21 years old, and I get placed in this environment, and I'm basically lost. I'm trying to, because there's all these rules in prison of who you can eat with and who you can talk to, and what races that you can associate with. And for a young kid to go into a system like that, and it's a system where people die and it's no big deal. It's a kind of system where somebody can die and they're just going to run, they're going to continue to run chow, they're going to run dinner, or it's just going to keep, the machinery is going to keep working. And so to a great degree, a person becomes kind of dehumanized. You on a daily basis, you're getting stripped out, and you're having to stand, in 35 and 40-degree weather and take off all your clothes and walk around in a circle, and you're sitting there and you're shivering, and steam's coming out of your breath, or it's so hot, right? It's extreme. I know how it is here in Houston when it gets hot. So imagine living in a place that's nothing but concrete and bars, and it holds all that heat. And so I'm in this environment, and I'm trying to, I'm trying to do the best with what I have. Well, anyway, that eventually leads me to a GED class. I take an entry exam for your GED, and so they give me the results back, and I don't know how to read the scores, and I think that I've done terribly wrong on this test. And a friend from mine from the street was there, and he wanted to see it, and I didn't want to show it to him. And eventually I gave it to him, but it turned out that I scored the highest you could score. I outscored the test. And so when he told me that, it was like I couldn't understand that, I could produce that. So uh, so 2 weeks later, I ended up getting my GED. Hey, I apologize. It's usually not this bad when I tell this story, right? Like ultimately, I can tell this story over and over again, and some days it just shoots right over my head. So anyway, I end up getting my GED, and then 2 weeks later, they put me in a junior college. I end up getting my associate degree, and now I see all these like possibilities in my future, right? So I still don't have any support. I still don't have any family, but I have school. And so for the next 10 years, ultimately that's what I did. I earned my associate degree, and then I earned my bachelor's degree, and then I earned my master's degree. And when I was in prison, uh, I helped other guys, studying, and I built programs, and I got groups of guys together so we could teach other inmates. And like I had all these awesome professors that I was, connected with. All my writing professors, Dr. Supermanian and Dr. White, just all these people that they mentored me for like a decade, like 8 years. So I got out last year, and I'm not from Houston. I'm from San Antonio, and my wife's from Houston. I met her when I was in prison. And so I get out of prison and I come to Houston. I don't have anybody, but I have my professors. And so I start reaching out to my professors, and I meet the president of my university, and we have lunch in her office. Just the whole the fact that my whole hey, I apologize. It's just one of those days. I apologize. I really do. Uh, but yeah, so I go to my university, and I have all these like awesome people that are, they're still trying to pour into me and pour into me. And so I get out and I'm on GPS monitor, and I can't go anywhere. And like I haven't seen my family. I've been home a year, and I still haven't even, seen my family here. And so I kind of confined to the house. And then with this whole COVID thing that started, And I didn't, and you have to think, when I got out of prison, I didn't know anything about, sending emails or anything about phones, or I didn't know anything about, I was lost. Uh, it was like I was gone for over a decade. So everything was, I even looked at the microwave, and the microwave had all these buttons, and I didn't know what to do, right? I was like, why does this thing got so many buttons? But anyway, so during the course of this year, I started, I have all my friends that are in prison. A lot of these guys, they're just like me, and they were all athletes, and they were all academics, and they were all on this road of, trying to do more and trying to do better. And they would all write me. And so I sat down one night and I was like, I need to do something. And so I started this From Prison to Purpose page, and I started highlighting the benefits of education. And not only highlighting that, but I would share my friends' stories, because there's some awesome guys in prison. I mean, just like people that you would meet, and you wouldn't understand why they would be there, you know? And then when you live around for somebody for 10 years, I mean, you learn these these guys value, what they're going to do when they're in a good situation or when they're in a bad situation, and you're in a terrible environment already. And some of them are strong writers and strong speakers, and so they were all writing me. And I said, you know what, we're going to do an anthology. I want to do an anthology. And in this anthology, the first chapter is going to be uh prisoners, felons, criminals, who are we? And we're going to share our stories. We're going to try to, you know give a different perspective on what people think, that, people that are incarcerated. And so a lot of my friends did that. And then I wrote another chapter on the benefits of education. So I had all these guys, undergraduate students and graduate students. They all wrote me, and they their different perspective on education. And then I wrote another chapter, and it was based off perspectives, like things like race and dehumanization, and things like sacrifice, and just various topics where these guys could kind of sit down and just discuss whatever they wanted to discuss. And then towards the end of the book, I put a letter to prisoners and their families. So if they could read this book, they could have some uh, direction, not only while they were in prison, but it would give their family members some direction dealing with them, and what they needed. And so what my thought was that if with this page, because this page, I didn't know anything about social media. It was all new to me, but I just started writing, and I started putting all my thoughts out there. And so this page got like close to 3,000 followers in like 90 days, right? I got people calling me from all over the country. And so I didn't know how to feel about that. You want to help everybody, right? You have people calling you from everywhere, and you want to help everybody. And so, there was a period where that's all I was doing, was I'm just writing, sons in prisons all over the country, and I'm trying to calm moms down, and I'm, just doing all I can within my means. And that's why I said, in this last chapter, I need to give them something physical. That way they can order this book and they can send it to them, or they can buy it for themselves. And then what I wanted to do too is, some of my friends don't have any money. Like, some of them have been locked up 30 years. They've been locked up since they were 15 years old. And, their parents might have, passed away, and now they're in there. And so I was thinking, well, if this book does do well, then I can send y'all some money, right? I mean, y'all are involved, y'all are invested. It's my way to be able to, you know, do something for y'all. And so, and that's kind of and the book came out real well. I was surprised. Hey, I was surprised. I wrote manuals, but I never wrote a book before, right? Couldn't be that difficult, just a long paper, right? And so uh so the page blew up, and I have all these followers, and people I'm connecting with, and now I have this book, and then I have my professors, you know behind me. And but honestly, I attribute it all to God. I mean, for me, I gave my life. I never knew anything about God, and I gave my life over to Christ in 2009. I was 30 years old when I gave I just didn't. It just wasn't within my realm of influence, and it was foreign to me. And so, but since that point, and like to be where I am at today, it's really kind of amazing. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. Uh, because that environment is a real, like it's a real difficult, and I guess because when I have to talk about these things, they're still kind of fresh on my mind. So that's what makes it kind of.
Did we lose him? Oh,
Just a short reprieve.
okay. Sorry, I had this locksmith over and had to step away again, but he's finished now.
Well, you can see now why I wanted him to have a chance to talk to others. It never ceases to amaze me when I end up doing an interview with a student who has been part of that Academics for Offenders program, who that person now is,
Mhm.
and what a complete alien person that must have been to start with, and who they are now, and the time and the education and the investment of the professors and the focus and the purpose that this affords, the education affords. It changes everything. And so we have, and I'm sure, UH Clear Lake claims this, but I know other universities that have prison programs also claim this. The recidivism rate is like literally zero for students who get an education and they go out in the world. Of course, that's what everyone's afraid of is you're on the loose now. What are you going to do? You went to prison and now you're worse than when you went in. Well, they may be, but if they've had the education and this interaction with professors and this time and everything that these programs afford, they don't reoffend like ever. So, I mean, you can't say ever, but really, really, really infrequently do they ever, go back and reoffend and find their way back to prison. And so ultimately, the safest thing for the community is to educate them when they're in prison so that they don't come out and reoffend. And there are those who have a huge problem with spending this time and investment on these sort of throwaway people in prison that, you should just leave them and just let them rot. But, sometimes they're young and they only spend 3, 4, 5 years, and Johnny was there much longer. But when they come out, they're still young and they have their lives ahead of them, and maybe they can well and truly make an excellent second chance at life and be really great people who contribute in a really meaningful way if they get a chance. Because now the problem for Johnny is he's got a master's degree in flipping English literature. And he's written a book and he's done all these things. And he works part-time in a tattoo parlor. Why? Because when they do the background check on him, you know what happens? And the employers go, you seem great, but, and so
Mhm.
He works part-time in a tattoo parlor. Now, I think he's going to adjunct professor for us at University of Houston Clear Lake, which is wonderful, and what a great chance for him and what an opportunity for him. And he's going to make the most of it. He's so proud of that, and he should be. But, oh, well, there he is. He's so proud of that, and he should be. So I'm going to let him go back. I'm going to let him go back to
Hey,
finish it.
yeah, it's just one of those days for me. I don't know. Maybe because I'm at home. I have no clue. So, oh, speaking on that, so she's talking about like this educational program.
Yeah.
Well, the reality is this: there's 158,000 people that are incarcerated in the state of Texas, right? When I graduated with my master's degree, there was only 4 of us.
Yeah.
That's 4 out of a pool of 158,000.
That got a
So-
master's degree?
Yeah,
You're one of 4 people that got, wow.
but my point in saying that is because the availability of programs like that are really small.
Mhm.
Right, this is one of the only program. I think this is one of the only programs in the whole nation that offer master's degrees to men that are incarcerated. And so, and the reality is like, so what does education do, and like, what's the benefits of education, and how does it help, and only through my own personal journey, like what it's taught me and the confidence it's given me, and the things that I'm able to do. I mean, if a man can get out of prison and not even send an email, right? Not even, I mean, just the basic things that not even work a cell phone. But if a man can get out and start a page and have a big following and be able to complete a book in the span of 90 days, to be able to, like, I've spoken at the UH Maine, for UHCL, and the thing is I know the material that when you're in the free world, you can Google search, or you can cut and paste, or I mean, you have all these engines that you can get inside of and basically find whatever information that you want to find. Well, I mean, and a lot of y'all know, I mean, like a lot of y'all didn't have that. We didn't have that neither. We didn't have anything. We had a book, we had notes, we had a pencil, we had a 25-page paper. Yes, we were going to write it 3 times. And not only that, you may have 200 guys on a wing that are screaming at the top of their lungs, banging on metal and watching football games and watching basketball games, and you're one of these only 4 guys out of a 1,400 man unit that are working on this paper. And so when you're working on these complex theory, or like literary theory, or anything, whenever you're consumed in this type of academics, I mean, who are you going to ask questions to? Who are you going to be? You're not going to be able to contact your professor and, hey, I need some help on this. You're not going to be able to Google it and figure it out. You're going to sit locked in that cell with those books, and either you're gonna make it or you're not. But you learn a lot about yourself. And I can sit down in front of anything now, and the environment too. Because of that environment, you have to stay strong in that environment, because that environment will kill you. It really will, because of just the amount of, I mean, like the unit Ramsey unit is 100 years old. So that was before they had any building codes. And I mean, it's really, it's old, and it's dirty, and it's rusty, and there's mold everywhere. And I mean, the toilets may be, running all over the floor, and they're just going to you just have to wrap a towel around it, or some old clothes. Or on the next floor, all those pipe chases maybe have all kind. They've been there for 100 years, so they have all types of breaks in them. So a guy might be getting, dripped with raw sewage when he sleeps. I've seen guys have to sleep with a plastic bag over them, but that's the type of environment that you're in. So you're living in this horrible environment, and then you're trying to pursue these academics, And now you're going into these classrooms and you're having to produce material. I mean, that's you're a graduate student or you're an undergraduate student, and you're here, and this is what you need to be doing. And so you learn a lot about yourself. You do. And so to come from a position in my life where I didn't have any education, and then and to earn this graduate degree, and and to know that I'm fully capable of doing anything that I put my mind to, I know the impact that it has on me, and that's why I know what benefit it could have to other men as well. And so for me, that's why I'm advocating for higher education within the prison system and prison reform, because now I see issues with policy. I not only see issues with policy within the prison system, I see policies within the parole system as well, because I'm involved in it. For me, I've had meetings with different city council members. I've had many meetings with different directors of the Houston Sheriff's Department. I've been speaking to everybody everywhere, right? I've been at Maine. I've been writing books. I've been building page. I've been doing everything possible to take my life in a constructive way, right? My father has cancer, and the other day he was in the hospital, and they wouldn't even let me go see him. And so I can understand it as how policy like that is conducive with somebody re-entering into society. They throw these blanket fixes on these issues when they're individualized issues. You know, I can't tell everybody, hey, y'all all need to fix this the same way. It's not going to work like that. But the system has gotten so big that that's what they try to do. They send me to a program, right? It was just because I had been locked up over 10 years. So they send me to this substance abuse program. I have more education than even the regional director, right? They all have bachelor's degrees and I have a master's degree. And my undergrad is in behavioral science. So when it comes to mental health, when it comes to criminology, when it comes to deviance, when it comes to statistics, I know all that stuff, right? And so I go into this program, and these people that are supposed to be educating these inmates, they're not fully capable. It's not that they don't want better for them, it's just that they just don't know. They don't know the material. And so I could see what the criminal justice system is doing, right? And for me, it was like, God, why did you allow me to receive this education, right? Right? What was the purpose? And why did you make me go through all this difficult stuff? And for me, the end result is he allowed me to have this education, and he allowed me to go through all these difficult situations so I could later come back and maybe with a PhD, and I could try to fix some of these issues within the system. And they can't tell me that I don't know, right? Because I've been through it. You know, because you have academics talking about the criminal justice system that never been there, right? And then you have inmates that try to talk to the academics about the criminal justice system, but they may not be familiarized with the vocabulary. Why are we going to listen to these guys, right? To a degree. And so for me, having, you know, the opportunity to on both sides to get, you know, invested and just learn, I feel like that's what my life is leading to. It's for advocating for change, for policy, for the benefits of education. Well, within that, I also feel like it's my responsibility to teach the next generation of criminal justice professionals, or just the next generation of young people. Like, the reality is I taught for 10 years within the prison system. I know how to communicate to a class. I know how to keep everybody involved. I know how to keep everybody. That's what I did. And I didn't get paid for it because they don't pay you in prison. So I worked for 10 years teaching. And I would be in certain situations where I would have 350 guys in a hot gymnasium, and I have to teach them about diabetes, and I have to teach them about high blood pressure, and I have to teach them about AIDS and sexual assault prevention. There was just a whole list of things that I had to teach. And I got to keep these guys, they already in prison. They already don't want to be there. It's hot. And so over time, you kind of learn, for me, what works and what doesn't work. And so ultimately, that's why I think God allowed me to go through those seasons, you know, for It's kind of cliche, but for a reason, right? And so I know I just gave you a lot right now, right? I just gave you a lot. Because I'm passionate about it because it's not right. It's not right. Ethically, it's not right. Morally, it's not right. If there's an individual that's doing bad and there's an individual that's lacking in some area in their life, a lot of these guys commit crimes because they have a lack of resources and they don't have the education and they don't have the opportunities. So they do what they know how to do. And I say that because that's what happened to me. That's what happened to me. And so education provides that. Give them a different lens to see the world, a different perspective. And so, and that's what I always fall back on, right? I don't have all the answers, but there's some things I do know, right? And the things I don't know, we'll kind of figure it out. But just to draw that line and say you're a bad person and you're always going to be a bad person. And this only came with age because I'm 40 years old now, and I'm not the same person that I was at 30. And I'm not the same person that I was when I was 20 years old. Right? But for a lot of people in the world, they say, well, you committed that crime, 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago, and you're that same person. Well, if that's not true for you, why is it true for them? But for me, and it's hard because like you get out here and there is a lot of I'm up front, right? This is who I am. This is the direction that I'm going in. But it is difficult, because there's that bias and there's them stigmas and there's that label that's associated. And so I don't know, ultimately that's my purpose in wanting to teach the next generation is to kind of show them this different perspective. Let me give you these UHC, let me give you these guys that I went to school with, these guys that I know, these academics, and I'm going to let you talk to them and then you tell me what you think. But first you got to give them an opportunity. And there's a whole, pool of these men. Like I keep in contact with a lot of the guys that have gotten out that went through this program. And there has to be over 50 guys that these are my friends, right? You eat with them, you bathe with them, you live around them, you work out with them, you go to school with them. I mean, you know these. Anyway, I'm gonna give y'all a little did y'all
We just lost you for a second, but you're back. You're back.
all right. Let me get a little drink. All right, so I don't want to y'all got any questions or anything?
Yes, I do. Hi, Johnny. I'm Paul. So, in your discussions with some of the policymakers you've talked with, like city council people, how receptive have they been to some of the ideas that you bring?
Well, actually, the conversation.
No.
I guess more directed more at prevention, right? So that was the most recent discussion that I had, but it seems I haven't. Maybe next month I'll have an opportunity to speak on policy, but lately it's just been like basically whatever issues that they're having, I just try to bring a different perspective.
I have a comment and a question, if I may. Again, Mr. Ward, it's so wonderful to see you here. I know Dr. Subramanian and Dr. White really well, and they speak so highly of you. I'm actually reading 2 books right now. I read a little bit of each one every day. One is yours and the other is Father Mike's. And so it's interesting having the 2 of you on the same screen when every morning and every evening I'm learning these wonderful bits of wisdom from each of you. Congratulations on your book. At UHCL, I'm working with UA to get 100 copies for you to sign for us to give to all the graduates at TDC for the next few years, because that inspires those of us in the free world, and I can't imagine how it must inspire those who are achieving wonderful things behind that wall. I wanted to ask you about what kind of resistance you might have met with when you asked your friends to contribute their writings to your book. These are intensely personal, they're very moving, they're very introspective. I can imagine that some might have been resistant to sharing those parts of themselves. So tell us a bit about how you put the book together and what kind of responses you got from your contributors.
So I was on the Revs unit for roughly 10 years. And so all those guys in that book, those are my dear friends. And so it was just me really having to ask. There's certain types of people that you meet in prison. There's some people that are going to get out and do what they say they're going to do. And then there's people that just want to leave that place and put it behind them and never think about it again. And so when I was in prison and I told my friends that, hey, when I get out of here, I'm not going to forget about you. That's exactly what I did, right? I talk to them all the time, and if I can help out their family, I'll help out whatever I can do. Those are my friends. And so them seeing, first it started with the page, and then the page did extremely well. And so I had already built a team of there was like 13 of us. We had all developed a program when I was in prison, and I sat for a year and I worked on that thing and I wrote it. I put it on a typewriter, because that's how you have to write books in prison, on a typewriter. And so I was able to put this book together in there. So I think they already had some confidence in me, right? And so when this started going into, I have a whole book of stuff that I haven't even typed up yet for the next book. So yeah, these guys are whatever they can do, there was no resistance at all. You know what was amazing too? Dr. Subramanian said that they have a student conference once a year, and she's been able to get like 1 or 2 speakers every now and then. I called up my friends, and this year there was going to be over 30 guys that were going to show up. But COVID happened. But there's this disconnect because TDC doesn't want UHCL to be overly involved with its students, right? TDC does that on purpose, right? And so I could see how that's been issues. But when I got out, I don't work for TDC. You know what I mean? They're not going to tell me. Those are my friends. And so when I started making phone calls, these dudes were coming from all over Texas. They were already renting rooms and everything around UHCL. I had already put up a roster of different speakers. But yeah, these guys are just, they're looking for an opportunity to make a difference. That's what, and I brought that up at that student conference. I'm the student conference at that conference with some of the members of city council. I told them that there's this divide. There's this divide between the criminal justice system and the people that are incarcerated. And so you say that we're causing the issues, right? And I'll give you that. All right, we caused the problems. Why don't you let us fix them? Right? And there's a whole pool of guys. I know a bunch of, good guys that they want to do something. It's not the fact that these guys don't want to do anything. They don't have the opportunity to do anything. And so when I said, hey, y'all want to do this? They were, man, from all over, even from guys that I didn't know. I couldn't, the thing is I'm not going to, I can't put my name on anybody that I'm not confident in, right? That's just against my own principles. If I introduce you to somebody, I tell you he's a good person, he's going to be a good person. And so, but I say that to say, because I was getting letters from other people too, the guys I didn't know. And I mean, so my point is they are willing. They are willing. Yeah, I got a whole, So the next book is going to be called Awakening, and it's good. This is going to be a better. I'm going to take more time with this book. I mean, this one came out all right, and I need to make some changes to it, but there was some slight. But the next book's going to be even better, because now these guys are all pumped up, right? I sent it to all the prison. There was like 13 guys in that book, so I sent it all over the place. They call all the time, and they're all excited, and it's just and you know what? And my friends write me, and like all these opportunities, because these guys are stronger writers than me. Man, some of my friends would turn in these papers and come, and I'm like, it would just blow me away. These dudes are animals, right? And so, but this next book, a lot of them are, you know, they're really invested. And what I want to do is I want to make a dialogue between professors and students, like a message to each other. And that's kind of what I want it to be, this dialogue where you have one, you know, professor of why I do what I do and why I show up and what I've learned, and then the student with the paper talking to the professor and how this has impacted his life and what the takeaway is. And that's kind of what I want to do with this. I know I'm getting all excited about it, but I just, hey, and
Well,
Murphy, she sent me a paper, and so yeah,
I just saw her today, as a matter of fact. Listen, let us support you in whatever way we can. I'll be in touch with you. We'll work together and make it happen. We're so proud of you.
thank you. Hey, man, yes, thank you.
And I'm here to help you as well.
Yeah. Hey, I and you don't, and it's hard for people. I tell Super Mining all the time, it's hard for people to understand, like, when you go somewhere and you don't know anybody. You not only don't know anybody, but you're like there's a lot of things you don't know how to do. I hadn't driven a car in 10 years. And so, and it's like the things that people do on a bank account, a routing number, you know, there's like things that you don't do something for 10 years. You just don't know, you know? And so you got to think, you get out of prison and you don't have anything. You're starting with, I need a toothbrush and some you're starting with I need socks. You know what I mean? You do all these years, they give you $50, and then they ask for $18 back the first month because you have to make parole payments. And so, and then they made me go to over 100 classes in the first 90 days. And then I had to pay for these classes. So first, I need to get my driver's license. I don't have any clothing. I got to make it to these classes. I got to pay parole. I got to pay all these classes that I'm going to. I have to report 4 times a month. You know, even if, like, you could see how people could get out of prison and be hit with all these overwhelming responsibilities, and they just, and it's like the system's designed for failure. I know I'm taking it kind of in a negative direction now, but that's what I see. And then what happens too is the parole officers, they get desensitized, right? They go through this process of dealing with these same individuals on a day-to-day basis. A lot of these guys, you know, they don't have a lot of education. They probably have authority issues, so they go in there and they treat them however they treat them. And then I go in there, right? So I go in there and they try to treat me like they treat everybody else, right? And how do so you come from a situation where you're being dehumanized on a daily basis. You're being treated like you're less than. And so, and because of that, you have a fear of you not gaining your freedom. You might not go home. You can treat me any way you want to treat me. I can't do anything about it because you're holding on to my freedom. And then the whole system, everybody's interrelated. The whole system's like that. You know, you have sergeants that are married to lieutenants and captains. You have it's generation upon generation. Everybody's interrelated. And so what happens is what's right becomes relative to whoever you're dealing with. Because if they don't like you for some reason, they may have a brother or an uncle or a father that they can't get you, and these other individuals might get you with some type of, for just arguing with them or just saying something, just calling them out when they're wrong, because they're never wrong, right? And so an individual gets out like that, right, with this kind of a fear of authority. And now you're dealing with these parole officers that are desensitized. So they're trying to treat you kind of harshly too. Well, for me, I had to finally get to a point where I had to write up policy and I had to put their mission statement on there. And I wrote up this on I had to write up my parole officer. And the regional director called me and contacted my parole officer and chewed her out and told me personally, if you ever have any issues, you call me back. My point in saying that is how many individuals don't know how to put something like that together, right? Use their own policy. There's a lot of guys like that. And so that's why that system continues to work like that, because it's not about, it's the power of the pen. That's basically what it comes down to. And so now I'm just venting, right? but it's a reality.
Lost him again. No, he's not muted.
Oh, you are on. I decided to meet Ted Cruz in the next few months. Hey, I'm going to take him the book, right? And I'm going to let him read for himself the impact of education has on these guys, right? I'm going to give him a t-shirt. I'm going to tell him about the UHCL program. And then I will see what happens. All right. Anybody else? I'm sorry. I know I kind of took off on y'all.
Well, Johnny, I appreciate, I've read a couple of books around policing, and you're filling in some details about prison as punishment more than rehabilitation, right? It's like getting revenge on people. It's kind of what you're saying, and inhumane treatment. And I'm wondering, what can we do to help? At the personal level and at the policy level and the communal level.
Ultimately, I think that it's gonna have to be something that's fought in the courts. There's not really gonna be no change. All right, the reality is even for the people that are working within the criminal justice system, they're on the lower end of the socioeconomic system. So even those people don't have a lot of education, and like I said, it's generational too. So the things that they're doing, it was taught, by their parents that are probably working in that system as well. And so the cycle continues. So on the prison, as far as the prison system goes, nothing's going to be done until like real stuff is battled in the courts. And that's going to take money. It's going to take litigation, or it's going to take really people that are just willing to do that litigation, because even the officers, they're just doing what they were taught to do. They don't, and it's kind of sad for them too, because they're in the same type of situation. But on the communal level, I think the best thing that we could do is just to help the guys that are getting out. I think that's, because that system isn't doing anything for them. Everything that I've learned, as far as rehabilitation, as far as, like substance abuse, like all these different areas, those weren't things that were required. I was in prison for 10.5 years. Nobody ever asked me about my crime or why I did it. Does that make sense to you? Not one time. Like, where's rehabilitation in there? Like, you commit a crime and then you go somewhere and they hide you and they keep you in this terrible place for X amount of years, and you don't even discuss what took you to prison. Like, it just doesn't, there's no counselors. You know what I mean? There's no therapy sessions. There's no, it's not that type of place. It's a kennel. It's just like a big kennel. So and it's a big, you got to think the prison system has grown 400% in 40 years. Right? And so it's just like when you're running a big corporation. I mean, it can get so overwhelming that the small things kind of get lost in the shuffle. And I think that's what's happened. You have one officer trying to deal with, 300 inmates. It's monetary. It's a cycle. It's about money. The whole system is about money. Do you have a body of individuals that are within the prison system that they're making? I've worked in the furniture factory. All the furniture that's in the courthouses, that's made by inmates. All the gavels in the Senate, that's made by inmates. I used to spray and lacquer them. Everything is, they make metal goods, they make textiles, they do electricity. Inmates build prisons. So when they want to build a new prison somewhere, they load up a truck of inmates, they take them over there, they pour the concrete, they do the plumbing, they do the electricity, the whole 9 yards. Even within the system. I mean, I used to I was working on my graduate degree right in the evening, and in the morning I would have to go out and work in the fields with an Aggie. There's still guys on horseback with 30-30s and shotguns, and you're still out there and you're lined up right here in Rosharon, Texas, and you're knocking all that grass down. Is it already past our time, guys? Oh, it's already 8 o'clock. Yeah, but the whole system is built off of monetary gain based on, free labor. And so what happens in the prison system is, so they gave me 10 years of work time, right? Because I worked. But when it was time for me to go home, I had to give all that back to them. I had to sign all my work back to them. I didn't have to sign it back to them, but then they didn't have to give me parole. So, and they do it when you're leaving. It's on your parole paper. And my point is so the whole system, it's just a monopoly. We make textiles, we do computer recovery, we make license plate, we make mattresses, they make t-shirts, they make the whole 9 yards, they make everything. And then a lot of times they sell it back to the inmates. Where are we going to get our clothes from? Let me answer some questions. Y'all have any questions? I've kind of been talking forever.
Well, this is Kathy Delgado. I'm under Lewis. And talking about what we as a community could do to support people coming out of prison. You said you didn't have a toothbrush, you didn't have socks. What about some kind of program where, say, we had a backpack with t-shirts and socks and toiletries and something that you could hand people so they would have something when they came out, and that would be at least one small need that had been taken care of.
Ma'am, yes, ma'am. Anything would help. You have to think, I was fortunate enough to have my wife, but some people don't have anybody, and they have to go to a halfway house. And the first, I think, and it's easy to lose sight of that. Like when you've been building a life for yourself for X amount of years, right? And you have everything that you need. For a person getting out of prison, majority of them don't have anything. You know what I mean? You value a good cup. You value a good pen. It's the small things. And so, yes, I feel like that would be, and it's sad too, you bringing that up. at the tattoo shop that I work at, my friend Anthony Hong, he's the one that started I was in prison with him. He did 15 years. There's 4 of us. Everybody's in prison. And lately, a guy's been living in that. And he just left the day before yesterday. But a guy got out of prison. He didn't have anywhere to go, so he was sleeping in the tattoo shop, and he carries a backpack around with him everywhere. So yeah, anything helps. That's sad, right? Anybody else, guys?
This is Kathy again. We really appreciate you talking to us like this. It's been really eye-opening, and you think a lot of it is situational, and the whole prison system, it's an industry. And a lot of times they're in small rural areas because it's the biggest employment. So it's how thinking about how can we sort of change that attitude in that direction. What are little things we could do, like maybe backpacks, and then bigger things where how can we start influencing the system,
Yeah.
which is harder.
And it, they're and yeah, I think it's just doing that, just showing them that somebody does have their best interest at heart. Because that, I don't think people out here understand how much those small things mean. When you don't have anything, I mean nothing. When you don't have anything or money in your pocket, I mean the small things, they mean a great deal. Hey, oh. I could talk about this stuff all day. It's kind of it's infuriating, you know. I guess the whole prison system is just a humbling, and like even the word of God, it talks about, right, to be grateful for the small things, right? Just to be grateful in all things. And so in there, for it to be, 100 degrees, and you to be able to get one glass of cold water, because you don't have an icebox, right? You're grateful for that one glass to have a extra pair of socks, or to be able to go outside today. You know what I mean? Like those small things you learn to be grateful for. And that humility, you come out here and I mean you want to help, right? You don't want to, you're not judgmental, or you're not critical, right? You just want to like do the right thing, and there's a lot of people like that, and it's just terrible that they all get colored the same, with the same brush. Anyway, but God says everything's for a reason, right? Get back to whatever God's I couldn't understand it. Like, why, God, how could you let me go through all these different, like, enough's enough, right? But he had but look, I mean, to be in the situation today, I think ultimately that's.
Johnny, this is Ellen. It seems to me from everything that you've told us, there are three really huge problems. One is how to help in the prison system itself. Another would be to help assimilate people back into society and teaching all these things that you've missed in all the years that you maybe have been incarcerated. And then the really big one seems to me that there needs to be a way to find people who are willing to employ parolees. And they all seem like huge jobs, but it's like you said, the small things. And maybe we need to start looking at how individually we can help in small ways. And the other problems are going to have to be solved through, like you said, litigation or bigger pants than we wear. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, no, it all makes sense, man. It all makes sense. And I feel, and I really feel like the social climate right now, I think there is going to be some changes coming. I mean, with everything, with all the protesting that's going on, it's all based on equality, right? It's all based on human rights. And I think that, and ultimately, I feel like that's why God is, it's all leading to something. It's something. But yeah, we need voices on both ends of the spectrum. Because the thing is for my position is I'm arguing for, right? Like 4 opportunities, 4 second chances. But the other side of that argument is, under, trying to protect the rest of society, trying to, there's a divide there. So yes, we do need people that are willing to offer that perspective. Really to support, reentry and second chances. Hey, so is this everybody from the church, right? I have no idea who I'm talking to. Everybody goes to the same church?
We do, and we have a few people, Johnny, you're not seeing, who for various reasons aren't here, but are extremely interested in your story. Yeah, we're a little Episcopal church across the street from NASA with some really, really good folks here.
I've never been to NASA. Hey, this is the first time I've been to Houston. Yeah, no, I've been I go to when I was in prison about a year before I made prison, I wrote 50 churches in South Texas. I mean, like Southeast area, because I was trying to build a support team for myself. So I was like, I'll write this form letter. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing. I'm looking to connect with some people that, when I get out of here, I'll know somebody. And only one guy wrote me back. And his name is Mike McAhone, and he was a police officer and the main pastor of Monument Baptist Church. He was a police officer for like 30 years. He went to go visit me in prison. He wrote me a support letter. He's just an awesome guy. He's a police officer but so I usually go, when I go to church, I go to church in Deer Park. He's an awesome, but I mean, I'll go visit y'all's church. And if you want me to go in there and talk to everybody, I mean, I don't mind. Hey, and I'll hold it together. Next time. maybe I'll get it out early, and then when I show up, I'm good.
I can't speak for everybody, but I'm grateful for your authenticity.
That's all I got. I'm not a man. I'll help out. If you need me to cut the grass, whatever you need me to do, just tell me to do it. I'll do it. I'm not a man. Whatever I can do.
Johnny, not holding it together. This is Susan. Just makes you human. Okay.
just like the rest of us.
That place tries to take that from you. It does. It's terrible. But I'm good now, right? Look at all these doors opening up. And I'm glad for the opportunity to meet all of you, and for you to just be willing to, just listen to me and bear with me while I that hardly ever happens. But I guess I have my days too. I guess I'm not as tough as I look. Yeah. But so are we gonna be? Was there is there a time frame that we're working in here?
I just want to honor your time. That's the biggest thing. You've already been on here for more than an hour, and with a bunch of people you don't know, sharing your heart with us. So, I don't want to run you into the ground. That's more than anything.
Oh yeah, no, I was just I wasn't sure because I don't know what everybody's time frame, and I didn't yeah, so I didn't. But I mean, unless anybody else has any questions or anything like that, y'all need to know anything, y'all have my information, right?
We've got it. And I expect you'll be hearing from us, but it's particularly the kind of questions like even things like backpacks for people who get out, and like what you think goes in those backpacks so we can make those and do that. Like we can't do it for everybody, but we can do more together. That's what we say around here.
Yeah. I'm thinking that probably maybe one of the best ways to do that would be to the guys that are going to halfway houses.
Okay.
So these guys are released to these halfway houses, and I can get the information for all of that too. Based on the network that I have. But yeah, that's one of the major things. I mean, because we're letting you out to it. Remember, you got $50 and whatever you can carry out of prison, and now this is where you're living at.
Yeah.
So, and they may have like a clothing pantry there or something like that. But I mean, they don't. It's still, anything helps. So
We'd be
yeah,
grateful. We'd be grateful. I mean, people here are at this place are generous, big-hearted people, and sometimes I think we just don't know what to do. So, with your guidance, I'm positive we can do something. And then, like you say, I mean, your story just puts a human face on something, honestly, that most of us don't have to see or think about or do, and that's really critical for us.
There is a program in the Episcopal Church called Kairos, and I don't know exactly how it works. I think it's more to do with people going into the prisons and visiting with people who are there, but they might be a resource for information for us. And there's also Bridget's Hope down at the cathedral, where they are helping women transition from prison life to outside life. And we pack up for them.
Kairos is a wonderful program. Yeah, that is. And then they have there's another program too. But see, this is what the issue is. The programs are wonderful. You have all these loving people that come in for Kairos. They go in for a week. They sit with the guys. They sit at a table. I participated in programs like that, right? I mean, they're awesome. You get this fellowship, but just like I told you, there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect after prison. So they're saying you're part of this program. You can communicate with these guys for this span of time, but after that, they're on you. You can't communicate with them, and so that's where But no, that's an excellent program. Yeah, Kairos is a good program, and that's through the Catholic Church, right? I think that's who.
Episcopal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good program. The dudes are crying and everything. And they have another program where they wash each other's feet. I don't know which one it is. I can't think of the name of it. I was actually in this has been so many years ago. But the volunteers come in and do it and that's just because the guys in prison are treated so badly. and it's just when I did it was almost uncomfortable, right? You don't want to ask somebody to do something like that, you know what I mean? But and you could see, I mean, because Jesus, I mean, that was, yeah. It's the Acts program. And they have the Acts program, they have Kairos, they have Bridges to Life. That's another really good program where they have actual victims of crime that they go into prison and they share their story of how crime impacted them. And so that's another good program. And I'm grateful for the programs because the system doesn't offer anything like that. It's only through volunteers. All right. Yeah, so I don't know if we can schedule, I don't know with the COVID situations going on. How are y'all looking at church right now? Are y'all still having services? Are y'all?
We do. We have mixed services where they're small by design to be COVID safe, like 36, 40 people. And then we stream on YouTube. We're able to do some of our regular stuff. We do fresh food distribution for people once a month here through the food bank. People just get to drive through with about 50 pounds of groceries. We've been able to do that every month. We have a little school here, and we've been able to do that by keeping our classes in bubbles. But you know, otherwise, like when we want to get together, it's on Zoom. You know, Sunday mornings we come, we have communion, it's bread only, and we don't linger and talk because, you know, we're concerned about safety. But so far we're doing okay with those. You know, we haven't had any outbreaks. A lot of people are joining us on Zoom or on YouTube. I mean, that's kind of how we've been having to hold it down.
And so I would, if y'all want to, my recommendation, I mean, you know, if y'all have time and you know, in the future or something, if there is a link to my page, I don't know if you'll give them the link to my page, but there's a lot of stories on there. They're well written. There's a lot of stories on there about the guys. I posted some videos on there. I talk about education. I talk about dehumanization. I mean, there's just various, like, I talk about the book, and it kind of just, just shines light on the various, topics. And I've never done it. Yeah. I never did anything like that neither. I was like, hey, I was like, either we're gonna pass or we're gonna fail. So, but if y'all don't have any more questions, I think I want to go eat something.
You deserve it. Thank you, Johnny. It's super great to see you, and I look forward to following up with you because, again, this is our this is what the Lord said, right? I was in prison and He visited me, and that's important.
Yeah, and I wouldn't. Man, there is some awesome guys in there. Like you wouldn't. You know, some of my friends, they were locked up when they were like 15 and 16 years old, and they've been down there for 25 years. It's just, and you meet them and you think, man, all these years, you did this when you were a kid. And I don't know about y'all, but when I was a teenager, I was a mess. Yeah, so it's, anyway, so I could, but yeah, I was, thank you. Yeah, keep in contact with me, Pastor Stone.
Will do. Grateful for you. And I'm just Mike. It's fine. Yeah, great to meet you. Thank you, Johnny.
Hey, y'all pray for me.
Will do.
All right, brother. I'll talk to y'all later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, ladies. Good to see you.
Bye.